What is up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. This is the place where you get actionable ideas, insight, and inspiration to turn your real estate career into a life of freedom. Sadly, our guest is not able to join us today. We're really bummed that he's not going to be here because he is awesome. Chris Lochhead, the author of Play Bigger and a new client of mine, the host of Legends and Losers podcast, was supposed to join us today to talk about personal category design and all things legendary. We're going to have him on in the very near future because the content that he has to share with us and what we can learn from him in the real estate industry and really just any kind of sales or entrepreneurship is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. But today, we're still going to blow minds, but we're going to do it by answering questions. And we're going to bring some content. We're going to answer your guys' questions. So, guys, if you're watching us live on Facebook right now, put them in the comments section. And Greg McDaniel, the Junior Grandmaster, is in the co-pilot seat where he so belongs, right in that office, in his blazer and his custom shirt. How are you today, Greg?
Well, I had a rough start to the day, to be very honest with you. Had a blowout with someone very close to me, with me ending it with going, F you, hanging up the phone. And then I felt bad and I said an apology text.
Man, you really need to have a better relationship with your mom.
It wasn't her, but it was someone really close.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. But otherwise than that, dude, I went out, Patrick, one of our listeners, he invited me out to Berkeley, where he called me up. He's been working with these investors, and he's like, Greg, I want you to come out there and co-list these with me. I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? 3 brand new builds, all around $1.5 million. Winning.
So look, what's the strategy for him? What's the incentive for him to co-list with you? Because Berkeley is how far away?
25 minutes, probably 25 to 30 minutes. Okay. Is where it's going to be. So the thing that he's co-listing with me is because we are a high listing team, and we're used to dealing in high-end markets. He's more or less, in the eyes of his client, is a buyer's agent. So for us coming in, he gets to keep a relationship with his clients, and then also be able to bring us in, and we can have the air quotes clout of a listing team, and he can learn and the client feels comfortable. And so we're getting together tomorrow to put a proposal together, what we're going to do. So, dude, Patrick, if you're watching, player, knuckles to you. Thank you very much for thinking of me. It's a true honor, my friend.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So in other words, he's doing exactly what Patrick Lilly did to break into the upper end of the New York market. He, reached out to somebody, found somebody with the credibility that he didn't have, and asked them to co-list. And so that he could, have the credibility to take a listing that he might not have been able to get otherwise.
Exactly right. I think that's probably an incredibly wise idea for any of the agents to do. Guys, if you're looking to get now business and get something that you need to do, here's a tip. Go talk to the top producer in your area that does majority listings. Go ask to handle all of their clients and give them a 50% referral fee. I mean, I don't know too many top producers that are not going to take a 50% referral fee and be able to, build a relationship and sit at the feet of these different people and learn. So I would definitely do it. Also, another good resource, dude. One of my friends, her nickname is JoJo. She's a divorce attorney, and her fiance hit me up and today goes, hey, dude, I think I got a couple of referrals for you. I'm like, awesome, man. I can't wait to help your friends. She's like, no. They're all JoJo's clients going through divorces. And I'm like, oh, thank you, baby Jesus. I love it. There's a want, need, and a desire on the other end of that cell, man, and I am willing to help them.
That is a very strong desire. A strong desire to get away from another human being. All right, so we've already got some questions rolling in. So let's take one right off the bat. And I know Arne has to run here, but she said she has a question. What do you say when you ask someone, when you're talking to an expired listing and you ask them, hey, where are you planning on moving when you sell? And they give you the answer, what does it matter?
Well, they're just being dicks.
I agree.
God. Well, your response is going to be this, Arne. Matt, be a dick. Just say, where does it matter? Do your best. Be your
I was going to say, I thought you were just going to say, Matt, be you. But you missed that opportunity for a joke, so I made it for you. So I'm just going to be myself.
Okay.
I'm just going to be myself, and all right, role play with me. Let me put myself into my character as Johnson here. Hang on.
Oh, that's funny. Oh my God. Okay, be a dick. Go. Be yourself. Own one's personality.
All right. So what does it matter where I'm going to?
You know what, Matt? I actually get asked that a lot. It's not that I'm trying to pry into where you're going to be going. Of course, that's your own business. I'm just actually connected to agents around the country that are top notch. I was asking asking so that I could maybe put you in the hands of a really good, smart, ethical, intelligent agent that could handle you on the other side. That's all. I mean, would that be something of interest? Would you want to work with a top agent in your future market?
Yeah, I mean, we're not moving out of state or out of town, so that's.
Oh, you guys are going to stay in town?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, do you want to start looking at properties together?
Okay, good. All right, and moving on from there. So you just asked me out on a mandate. I appreciate that, but that's good. All right, so leading with value. So the other option, I've heard this thrown out there, I think, in response to this question, which is that, well, I'm trying to get a sense of, you know, if you need to buy another home here in the area to get a sense of, you know, what your plans are.
Right. I mean, typically, right. I mean, if you're going to be if you're going to be listing their house, there's a high probability they actually do like you. So I don't know why they would be such a jerk. Maybe it's just because maybe they didn't want to disclose to you that they're taking all this money and they're drastically downsizing. Maybe they're flat ass broke and they don't want to tell you about it. They want to keep an image up. I mean, that's where you come in and you ask the 3 to 5 questions, additional, deeper, but very soft. Tread lightly on this. And every time they deviate off of your subject of question, just keep asking why. It's one of the most powerful questions on earth, but don't do it. Why? That's not going to get you anywhere. You're just going to piss them off, like I do to Matt on a daily basis. Piss him
like a 2-year-old.
Why? God, I'm annoyed.
All right, so we got a bunch of people watching. Arne and Michelle, Richard, Carla, Rob St. John. We've got comments. We've got questions. Amanda Baker says her video won't play. We're very sorry. I would like to give you Mark Zuckerberg's personal cell phone number, but sadly, he hasn't called me back in a while.
What a dick.
So
I got a text from him earlier today.
St. John says, outside of the infamous Smart Zip, which Greg, please button up on that. What's the best services for farm mailings that are out there?
Okay, first off, fuck Smart Zip. Fuck them till they're dead. Okay, step on them when they're drowning, cut their head off, and then shit down their neck. And that's the nice version of how I feel about them. They are complete and utter douchebags. They're crooks, and they tell fables that are not true. So that's the G-rated version.
Wow. Man, I asked you to contain yourself, and I'm so glad that you did, because I know you can go a lot deeper than that. But anyway, so the mailing list. I know you use CoreFi.
Yeah.
Kind of excited. Now, guys, we've done a whole episode about this. So we actually did an episode, a year ago, with Chris, the CEO of CoreFi, where we went really deep on what CoreFi can do and all this stuff. But Greg, just give us like a general overall sense. Holy cow, Chris is here. Or at least he's trying. But we'll keep on. We'll answer this question until Chris can join us. But
I use CoreFi, guys. The reason why I recommend CoreFi is because they're a little bit more expensive than than like Everydoor Direct or something along those lines. But what they have on the back end is the ability to track when, let's say, Matt Julian and his 3 obese little babies were going to come in, and we sent him a postcard in 2014, but he keeps checking his valuation, and they have a 5-star rating on the back end. So I know if Matt's in there. And it goes up from like a 1 to like a 3 or 1 to a 4. That's like he's really checking that evaluation. That means there's something has shifted on his end, and he really is thinking about moving. So I can pick up the call and be like, yo, what up, Matt? Hey, buddy, how's life? Yeah, hey, man, I got alerted that you're checking your value. Just wanted to quickly give you a ring, man. Is anything changing? You guys ready to get an evaluation? I mean, you can do a lot of things. Maybe don't use the script of, hey, I'm watching you like a stalker with a trench coat in the bushes kind of a thing. But you can definitely say something along the lines of, like, hey, just Matt, you popped on my mind, dude. Just wanted to catch up and check with you. How's life? What's new? How's 2017 treating you? What you guys doing anything new and interesting this year? So on and so forth. But that's the reason why I would use something along those lines. Just because we have people coming in since like, oh man, I think we started using them in like 2010 or 2011, and we still have people coming back every single month, hundreds of them that check their value or get an updated value that we get to ping them. I send them outbound email, touching base with them. It's just that's why I highly recommend them. But looks like Chris is here, dude.
I think so. Chris, can you hear us?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much. We weren't sure you're going to be able to hop on, but better late than never, right?
I was doing my job. I was on Conscious Millionaire, and we ran a little bit over because we had, to quote JV, a radical time.
Yes, JV is good people. All right, so I gave you when we're in the intro to the show, I mentioned kind of who you are and that we're thinking we're gonna have to get you back on another time. I see that you have your official Legends and Losers gear, which, by the way, as the producer of the show, I still do not have a T-shirt. I should be wearing that instead of this T-shirt. But anyway,
I'm fired for not getting you one, but I will rectify the situation with the overnight courier.
Chris, can you do something for me? I've been trying to get Matt to wear one of the Real Estate Uncensored shirts for 2 years, but he seems to have had a change of heart, and I want to thank you for that. So thank you, good sir.
You're very welcome.
Greg, you wanted me to wear our own podcast shirt to our own speaking engagement. I'm like, it's a little on the, anyway.
Don't you dare go there, Johnson.
All right. So, Chris, give everybody a sense of kind of who you are and what a little bit of your background is. I mentioned that you're the co-author of Play Bigger, and we're going to dive into the concepts and stuff like that. But you're obviously retired now. What was the thing you most recently retired from?
I was a partner in a coaching firm called Play Bigger Advisors with two good buddies of mine. And so I was a coach for the better part of 10 years. Prior, I was a player for 20 years. And so I hung up my coach's jersey last year.
Yeah. I'm only on what am I, chapter 5. I haven't found out that you stepped out of your book. Now the ending is totally bogus. Dang it! By the way, guys, this book, Play Bigger, is epic. It'll change the way you think about stuff to the point where you didn't even know you were supposed to be thinking this direction. But once you start thinking this direction, you'll never think about it the way you used to. So, Chris,
thank you, Greg.
Really enjoying it. No joke.
I love it. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And just because you're being modest, you're also a former 3-time CMO. You've exited 3 times. I mean, the companies you've been involved in as a direct result of the work that you did that led to the ideas that went into Play Bigger. I mean, we're talking about billion with a B, $1 billion sales to major players in the Silicon Valley space. And so I want to give people a sense of your background. So the book Play Bigger is all about category design. We want to bring it down to kind of a personal level of category design and explain real quick the difference just between big E and small E entrepreneur.
Great question. So I started my life as a small E entrepreneur. I got thrown out of school at 18 for being stupid. Yeah, really. You collect enough F's and C's, and sooner or later they say, "Hey, you can't freaking keep coming back here."
You can't claim to go to school here if you're never here.
You're just kidding. I found out at 21 that I was dyslexic, but that's a whole other conversation, and we can have it if you like. And so at 18, with very little options, I was working a manual labor job. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, let's start a company in the computer business." And I didn't know anything about technology, but he convinced me that would be a smart thing to do, and that's what I did. And so I started my business life with my buddy Jack, the Yellow Pages, for those of you who remember the Yellow Pages, a phone, and a shitty Samsung clone computer. And that was it. I started telemarketing and started to build our first company.
You know what, Chris, you and I have a lot in similarity there. I am dyslexic and ADHD as well, and I have 2 years of attending college, which means I partied and slept through class. Got out of high school.
You didn't happen to meet any nice ladies or anything while you were there, did you?
No. I would never meet a nice lady doing that.
Yeah.
And my first sales job was almost the same. I was selling Nextel cell phones by hand through the Yellow Pages.
Yep.
I know your pain, man. That is hard grinding work.
That is hard. Yes.
So we have a lot. There is hope for me, and I'm glad to hear this.
So that's what a small E entrepreneur.
Small E entrepreneur. Yeah.
So that's what a small E entrepreneur is. Somebody like us, and I would say that for a lot of small E entrepreneurs, Matt, entrepreneurship is, if you will, not a way up, but a way out. For me, entrepreneurship in a very, very real way. There's nothing theoretical about being an entrepreneur for me. It was either a life of struggle or doing something that I had the opportunity to fulfill my potential. And so for me, the entrepreneurial dream and the American dream are inextricably linked, because we live in a part of the world where you can absolutely start from nothing and with your bare hands make something of yourself and try to build a legendary life and a legendary business. And that was an opportunity that I had. And so for me, entrepreneurship was a way out of a life of struggle. A biggie entrepreneur is, I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley working with top tier venture capital firms who are backing, big, in my case, a lot of enterprise technology. I do have some consumer technology as well. And the interesting thing about those companies, they can make a gigantic difference. You go raise a couple $100 million, you build a legendary company, product and category, you dominate that category, you go public, you create a lot of value, you solve a big problem, et cetera. The thing about those types of companies is those entrepreneurs are what you might think of as big E entrepreneurs. Big idea, raising big money. And because they're in a situation where they can go to Sand Hill Road or wherever and raise that kind of money and go after that kind of opportunity, most of the folks that do that, if they fail, they're failing with somebody else's money. Everybody else knows the game, and nobody's going to miss a meal. Whereas for small E entrepreneurs, if we don't close some sales this week, then we're going to have a hard time explaining to the landlady why there's nothing. And she may or may not be sympathetic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, you don't understand. Like, there's a couple of clients that haven't sent me paid, checks for services. Like, nah, I don't care.
Yeah, and you can't go to Trader Joe's or Safeway and just say, hey, we're working really hard. There's these 3 companies. I think we're going to close them. Could you just give us this bag of groceries? Because I'm freaking starving, right? They kind of go, look, I don't care what your pipeline looks like or how awesome you think your business is. We're not giving you the groceries unless you give us the cash.
Yeah.
That explains why I didn't get dinner last night. Okay, now the mission has been explained.
That's right. Like you got thrown out of a Trader Joe's in Walnut Creek. All right. And so here's the interesting thing, Chris, because I think there's a lot of us out here in small E entrepreneur land. There's the people that they take the wrong, horrible lessons of the big E entrepreneurs, and they try to copy the ways that they market themselves with big, lots of branding and thinking they need TV commercials, and they aspire to one day have a commercial in the Super Bowl, which is all the things that the big E entrepreneurs also should not be doing, but probably get away with because they have money to burn. And then you have the people that don't take any lessons from them because they don't think anything that bigger companies do applies to them at all, right? Then what you've done is you've seen like the common thread that unites all that, which is category design, which is the best of what the big companies actually do. The ones that do it well, like Salesforce and Amazon, they do something specific, not because they're big, but because they end up dominating a space. And there's a way to do that. And there's the way that we can apply that to our own lives. So let's get into that conversation a little bit. So tell people what is the Chris Lochhead definition of category design?
So category design is really the ability to either create or recreate, and the 2 processes are actually the same. We could talk about that if you like. A whole new market category around a problem and therefore a new solution. And so what creates new categories, how you design new categories, is by defining a new problem or taking a known problem and reimagining it such that once people see or hear your point of view about that problem, they go, and they get it immediately, and their lives change. I'll give you a simple example. When Netflix is born, they don't compete with Blockbuster. They have a whole new paradigm, which of course we all understand today. Back then, Blockbuster's the category king in video rental. And by saying, hey, don't drive to the video store, don't go there just to find they don't have what you want and your family's pissed off, and now you got to talk to the sweaty zitty kid behind the counter to see what other effing movie they might have that the 4 of you can possibly agree to while everybody's fighting. And oh, by the way, then the sweaty kid says, and you owe us a late fee, right? That was the paradigm. That's what we did, right? Yeah. And nobody ever thought about it. It's just how it was. And we did that for years. Netflix comes along and they say, hey, we have, and I'm going to use this word on purpose, Matt, a different idea. Go to a website, type in all the movies that you like, and we'll send them to you in your mailbox.
Okay.
And so they reimagine the problem called home video around a whole new solution. And by reimagining the problem, the minute we understand that, we go, I'm never driving to Blockbuster again. I never want to see that Zitty kid again. and so literally they make the category move. They move the category from the way it at the time is to the way Reed Hastings and the rest of the folks at Netflix want it to be. And it's only when we accept the category designers' new point of view about how the world should work, do we actually accept their product or service. And so every service and product that we all love exists because a legendary innovator built a product or service, a company, and a category at the same time.
So in real estate, it's always been done the same way. And I think that a lot of people are out there trying to break the mold. They're like, I'm special, I'm different. But you talk also in your book, there's either category kings, which you dominate that new category, or you're the, Me Too's. Like, ooh, I'm here too. I think a lot of the agents are part of the Me Too crew because they've never identified the true problem, that they can solve maybe in their market or maybe in the industry. There are three questions, I believe Dave, Dave's three questions that, helped identify, how people could, find a problem and then find a solution and create a category and then dominate it. How would a real estate agent go about that?
Great question. And I'm just going to preface the answer with a quote from a dear friend of mine. His name's Bix Bixson. And Bix was the guy in the personal training, personal development world. I did a training program with him when I was 18, and he was one of those people who changed my life. Anyway, Bix and I have recently reconnected, and we were talking not that long ago, actually on our podcast, Legends and Losers, on an upcoming episode. And he says, most people are living in someone else's thinking. And that's what's going. Look, I'm not an expert in the real estate business by any stretch, but here's what I know. I have many friends who are realtors, adopted brothers who are realtors. And in the real estate industry, most realtors, when they think about positioning themselves, they're living in the thinking of the paradigm of what the category called realtor is. So let me share with you my favorite category designer in the real estate business. And he's a dear friend of mine. He was so successful, he's retired. He retired at 40. His name is Tim Rode, and he was the category king in Manteca, California. And at the time, and you guys could tell me how true this still is, my sense is it's true, but you'll know better than me. The paradigm in the real estate business was, hey, the way you get clients is you kind of hang out and buddy with people in the community, and you cuddle up to them so they get to know you, and maybe you say, hey, I'll give you a free evaluation, and you'll have to excuse me if I get some of the lingo wrong, but I'll give you a free evaluation of how, what appraisal of what your house is. And so I know you're not selling, but just so you know what it's worth, and so that you kind of, and the whole purpose is to like give them this free thing so that like they'll like you and cuddle with you, and so that if and when they decide to sell their house, they're going to remember, Greg or Matt or whoever. Well, Tim said, F all that. I only want.
Just so you know, Chris, this is a real estate uncensored, so unleash it if you want to.
Oh, good. I wasn't quite sure.
Well, the first chapter of your book, it cracked me up. I immediately became bonded to you three because you guys are describing sitting. I don't know if I'm sure it's your house or someone's house on the back deck in Santa Cruz, and you guys ended your phrase with some version of fuck. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a great book.
There's a lot of fucking going on if you hang around with me. Okay, good. So Tim says, fuck all that. I am not running around begging people to maybe think about listing their house in 5 years and hoping that they're going to remember. I'm not doing any of that shit. I want to deal with serious clients who want to sell their house right the fuck now. I also want to deal with clients who are not kidding. In other words, you guys know better than me. There's a lot of clients who, let's say the realistic number for their house is, $800,000 based on the realtor's expertise. You just know this is an $800,000 house. And the client's saying, no, I want $1 million. Tim didn't want to deal with any of those idiots. I'm going to tell you what it's worth. We're going to sell it in 3 days. And if you're not serious, don't fucking call me. That was his paradigm. So here's how he created himself by differentiating himself to become a category king. His point of view, his mantra was call Tim Rhode and start packing.
I love it.
And he ran these crazy, zany television ads. I think my favorite one is he's standing there with a suit and a briefcase, and he's kind of giving his pitch, and he's actually on a bridge, a bungee jumping bridge. And he sort of says, and I'm jumping at the chance to sell your house. And he jumps off the bridge, and as he's jumping, he screams, call Tim Rhode and start packing. Right?
I love this.
And so, he's fucking unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so what he did was he positioned himself proactively as the guy who you call when you're serious. And as a result, he became a category king and crushed everybody at Manteca. So much so, I'll tell you a quick story. When I moved to Santa Cruz, California, I met my neighbors, and they had moved to Santa Cruz from Manteca. And we connected on Facebook after we became, physical friends. They're literally right next door. And so my new next door neighbor, whose name's also Chris, says to me, hey, I was noticing on Facebook you're friends with Tim Rhode. Do you really know him? And I said, oh, yeah, I really know him. Tim and I have spent a lot of time together. He's my backcountry ski coach. And so we've been in a lot of places together. And I said, why do you ask? And he said, well, he doesn't know me, but if you lived in Manteca for the last 15 years, you know Tim Rhode.
And in Manteca, man, we're talking Central Valley. We're not talking $100 million homes. We're talking 200,000, 300,000 on a good day on some of the properties.
Yeah, and I could look it up if you care, but I know that he sold 2,500 houses. I can tell you in what period of time.
It was
but
18 years.
18 years? Okay. Yeah. And
wow.
now he's a real estate investor, and he's retired, and he's the founder of a nonprofit that is a miracle called onelifefullylived.org, which we could talk about if you like. But so what's my point for realtors? Don't accept the paradigm of your market. If you're playing by a set of rules designed by somebody else, you're probably going to fail. My buddy Tim did not accept the rules by which the average realtor played. And as a result, he became number one in his market. And Greg, you mentioned earlier, category kings. We did analysis for our book, and I could bring you through the data science if you like. But the net of it is, in the tech space, one company gets 76% of the economics in every category. Yeah. And if you start to look in space after space, that's now happening elsewhere. So Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, they don't have a competitor. She created the category, right? This guy Manoj, who created 5 Hour Energy, the drink that tastes like shit, but perks you up.
Right? These little gigs right here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a $2 billion category in the United States, and they have somewhere around $1.9 billion in revenue. And so you can look at market after market, but there's this winner-take-all dynamic that's starting to happen in almost every space. And you might be sitting there going, oh, Lochhead, you don't know shit about real estate, and that's not happening here. There's 5 billion realtors in my market, and a lot of them do really well. And so this category king thing is just not real. Okay, that's what taxi drivers used to fucking think too.
Mm-hmm. Or Uber showed up. Exactly right.
Exactly. And so, and I'm sure that's what all the realtors in Manteca thought until Tim Rhode drove a Mack truck through their revenue.
Mm-hmm. And it's totally true. There's a guy over in, I think he's on the peninsula. He's closer to you, Chris. And he's starting to create a a shift in our industry, because what he's doing at his brokerage, he's hiring agents as employees. Here's your salary. Show your ass the fuck up at 9. You leave at 6. This is your salary. End of story. And you know what? He's cleaning house because these people are employees. You know?
Well, it's about time. I mean, something's going to disrupt it. I don't know exactly what it is, but something's going to disrupt it. You know, whether it's the Uberification of it, whether it's a tech thing, whether it's a business model thing. I mean, there's lots of things that could disrupt it, but I mean, we can see it on an individual level. You can go neighborhood by neighborhood, and you can find, you may not capture 70% of the market share, but there's somebody dominates that neighborhood. It could be you, but most likely it's going to be, if you don't put your effort into it, it's going to be somebody else. Right? So Tim was able to dominate effectively an entire city and become the primary name that people thought about. Now, they may have not always gone with him because they have a friend or relative in the business, but just to be in the conversation every time and be top of mind for people that don't even live in your city anymore is pretty impressive.
And to be clear, he didn't just have a marketing slogan. It wasn't just a fucking tagline. That's not what it was. He's a category designer. By doing what he did, he changed the way people evaluated realtors and the way they thought about selling their house. And so he literally rewrote the rules in Manteca, California, for what a legendary realtor should be, with a point of view that advantaged him. And so everybody else in that market then had to respond. And when somebody else is responding to your point of view, you are setting the rules for how people should think about, in this case, selling a house and the criteria for selecting a realtor. And that is a lot more than having a good fucking slogan. It's changing the rules of the game in a very, very profound way. And every other realtor now gets compared to Tim.
You know, I'm just going through this. I'm writing notes on this right now because there's a lot of things that are coming to my mind. I mean, when Tim did this, he was running TV ads. They were expensive. He was taking print ads out. He's probably doing a lot of different stuff. But he was communicating with his public the way that people could do this potentially now. Chris, give me your thoughts on this. I mean, we have Facebook Live, we have Periscope, we have Insta Live, we have Snapchat, we have all these different free platforms where you could go out and blow up your market. Do a live and then take stats. You know, do have a tagline, but talk about why you're different than everybody else. You know what? When you list with the McDaniel Callahan team, you're going to close your house for 96.7% of the listing price, or on average, and that's a running average of 35 years. So where do you think you're going to stand? We don't bullshit price, we real price. Call the McDaniel team, you know, Callahan, to sell your home today. You know, you got to be edgy. Everybody's so fucking PC. Like, oh, hi, Betsy. Good to see ya. God, she's a bitch. Okay. Yeah. You know, but if people want to take the gloves off and do something aggressive and different and out of the box, like Tim did, it scares people.
Well, here's the thing that people need to be clear about, which is positioning yourself, and category design is actually more about who we're not for than who we're for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's the interesting thing about Tim's, because you mentioned it's not a slogan. Like, anybody can come up with like a slogan or tagline or even just an expression of what makes them different, and that's fine. You'll attract a tribe and stuff like that. But the next level up, the category design level, is in terms of what Tim did was he was able to come up with a tagline that expressed the idea that you call me when you are serious, right? Yes. So you call Tim.
Don't call me when you want to fuck around.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things I think why real estate agents stay in their groove, Chris, in your book, you talk about the fact that there's a psychological effect in your brain that why people always go with a herd. Why in nature are there bait balls? Why do antelopes run in herds? Why do lions hunt in packs? Because you feel safer in a pack, in a group.
Yes.
You know, and that blew my mind.
Well, and so here's people say, well, you know, it's not fair that it's a winner take all world. Rant, rant, rant. Okay, great. I get it. Maybe that's right. But, you know, that's how it is. Greg, to your point, well, why is it?
Why is what? Why is it safer?
Why is it that we're living in this winner take all world? It turns out that categories behave the way they do. And the reason there are category kings is because of the way our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
And can I share with you guys a quick story?
God, I hope so.
So 2 years ago, we took a good buddy of mine on a backcountry camping trip in the Sierras.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd never been on such a trip. And there was, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us. And we were out for 3 or 4 days, whatever it was. And we get to our campsite the first night. And have you guys been on these types of camping trips?
Well, we mean like backpacks and like a week or two in, and
Yeah. So you guys know. So when it's 3 o'clock, you're setting up your campsite for dinner, and where would we set up our tents if the 3 of us were on a multi-day backcountry trip?
I'm assuming somewhere around the fire.
Yep, and our tents would be pretty close together, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So that's what we do. And this buddy of mine, he's a little different.
Really awesome.
You can see the squirrels juggling chainsaws in his head sometimes, And so all of us set up, to your point, Greg, around the fire together, and we have dinner, and dinner's over, and nightfall's kind of getting on us, and we picked a spot that's a beautiful open spot because it's a clear night, and so we're going to lay on our sleeping bags on a big slab and look up at the incredible stars because, there's nothing like that. We have no light damage, and you're up at, 8,000 feet or wherever we were. So this buddy of ours, his tent's way the fuck over there because he's different. So we're all lying there and we're looking up at the stars and it's beautiful and they're shooting stars and it's all incredible. And all of a sudden the light bulb goes on in my buddy's head. He goes, hey, would somebody help me move my tent? And I decide I'm going to fuck with him, right? So I'm like, hey, buddy, why'd you want to move your tent? You're in a beautiful spot. He's like, well, I just realized there are bears in the Sierras, right? Right. He's like, I'm over there by myself. I need to be over here with you guys, right? Because it's easy to eat the one that's way the fuck over there. So we move his fucking tent. Why do I share that story with you? Human beings are pack animals. And so everybody who buys an iPad makes everybody who's thinking about buying an iPad feel better. Right. We want to be the same. As a matter of fact, and we talk a little bit about it in the book Play Bigger, there are scientists who've done work where they put people in brain scan machines, MRI machines, and they show them a set of pictures if they're with people's faces and who's attractive and who's not, and they kind of vote. And then they show them the same set of photos, but this time they show them what other people voted. And guess what? People change their fucking vote when they understand what other people did.
Huh.
That's interesting.
That's what human beings do. We want to be like each other. We do not want to be outliers. Why? Because our primordial self knows that if you're an outlier, just like my buddy on the camping trip, you're going to get eaten first.
Not a good turnout.
And so if you have reimagined, redesigned the category of realtor in your local geography, and you've set a new set of rules for how people should think about selling a home and therefore selecting a realtor, and you're the one that people look to for that, and I'm going to use this on purpose, thought leadership about that, then you become the category king by definition, and everyone else gets compared to you. And the problem, there's a compounding power of the category king. The more people understand the differentiation and buy into it, and then acknowledge you as the category king, the more other people feel comfortable doing business with you because you're the category king. Because, well, shit, hey, if Tim wrote, if 2,500 other people bought from this guy, even though he's a bungee jumping maniac, then maybe I should, I feel good about going with the leader. That's why Pepsi will never fucking catch Coke ever. I'll bet you my net worth. And so it's that herd mentality. Human beings want to be together. And so my point is, when someone goes to select a realtor and they know that by a meaningful margin, others in their community are picking this realtor over everyone else, that makes them feel good, just like it made my friend feel good to move his fuck tent.
I think that's totally, completely true. I think that, once people get around this, and I'm taking notes as we go here. People, when they have thought leadership, when they actually have an original thought, something that I do a lot of is video. I'm going Facebook Live 2 times a day, 3 days a week, right? And then I'm going live on the other 2 days, doing some live prospecting stuff. I stand out. I'm getting noticed for doing this stuff because I'm not the norm. I'm the live prospecting guy. People are just, oh, Matt, by the way, I had Derek Evans out of San Diego hit me up and maybe want to do something with us. And this guy has a big, radio TV show down in San Diego, Chris, that guy's like, hey, man, I see your stuff. It's pretty cool. So I kind of understand what you're talking about. It's doing something other people are afraid of doing. And, you mentioned Elon Musk in the book. I mean, talk about a prolific, mindset that man has on changing, the way everyone perceives it. I mean, he just got announced the other day that he's going to take 2 people around the freaking moon. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and the thing about Elon that most people don't realize, and I think he deserves every bit of praise that you could possibly heap on the guy. And he's a legendary category designer. And you'll have to excuse me. I can never remember what the fuck's in the book and what's just in my life. It's all just my life. So I don't know if it's in the fucking book or not. But I think it's in the book. But if it's not, listen. We handed in that fucking book a year and a half ago, and it's been a lot of scotch since then. Okay, so I don't know if it's in the book or not. But what Musk did with Tesla, he understood that the most important thing was to build this category called electric car. And so what's going on in the tech business right now, guys, is a massive patent battle. As a matter of fact, when Google bought Motorola for a gajillion bucks, they said, we don't want to be in this. We're not just doing this to buy fucking phone business handset crap. We're buying Motorola for the patents because there's all these patent wars going on. Okay, so in tech right now, there's massive patent wars, and you got, some of the most legendary companies making multi-billion-dollar buys primarily so that they can protect themselves with patents. So along comes Musk, and you know what he does with the fucking patents for Tesla?
I actually do, but I want you to say it.
He fucking gives them away free.
That's awesome. And then he ordered them to be taken off the wall at Tesla's, main office. I'm like, that is a serious pair of brass balls. I mean,
yeah. He understands that you can't be category king of a category that doesn't fuck exist.
Yeah, it's so true.
And a category like what he's trying to do requires massive infrastructure, and that requires help. And so he understands that he needs competition to standardize on batteries and chargers and carbodilators and deconfibrillators and I don't know what. And so when he gives away those patents, he's encouraging competition and he's encouraging people to innovate on top of his own patents because he understands that if more people don't get in the game, there's a very good chance his category might not go. And so I share that with you because it's a complete 180 from what everyone else in the tech industry is doing. And so my point, Greg, is, not only is he awesome for all the things that people understand that get reported in the news and the fucking SpaceX shit and all of that, but he's a legendary category designer.
Yeah, I think you hit on something right now that you didn't. I don't know if you hit on it, but real estate agents are so paranoid. Everyone was taking their business. And you know what? What I did when I was a corporate trainer for my company for 3 years, I literally gave them my playbook. Here's what I do. Everything that I do, every script that I do. And guess what? 0.01% of them maybe did 3 things. I think that people need to stop being afraid. That's their biggest thing, because there's more business out there for everyone in the whole entire globe. There's business for all of us, lots of it, gobs of it.
Well, and here's the thing people don't get. By doing what you did, Craig, you are positioning yourself amongst your competitors as a thought leader.
Yes.
That's what fucking category kings do. And remember, I quoted my dear friend and mentor, Bix Bixen. Most of us are living in someone else's decisions, in someone else's thinking. Most of us are living in someone else's thinking. So when you as a realtor say, hey, I'm a fucking thought leader, and here's the thoughts, and you give it to them, right? And people start responding. They go, oh, that's bullshit. That Greg, that McDaniel's got his fucking head up his ass. That's not how, that's not. Who are they? Whose agenda are they responding to?
Someone else's.
Right. I in no way want to have a political conversation, but I will. Okay. I will say that the reason Trump's president is he had a point of view. Hillary did not.
Yep. Yeah.
Hillary was always responding to whatever crazy fuck thing Trump did that day.
And he had her on the ropes the entire time. She was reacting.
I just saw an analysis of the PR that he got this January. Yeah. And experts believe he got over $800 million worth of free PR in January.
Wow.
He is in everybody's newsfeed, whether you want him to be or not. And the reason for that is he's got a provocative point of view, and he fucking evangelizes that point of view like a madman. And so that's why he's the president. And so my point is, by you, Greg, doing what you're doing, you're being a thought leader, and you're and I'm going to say this on purpose, you're forcing prospects and customers to react to it. Some people are going to like it, some people are not. That's exactly what Category Kings do. And with your competitors, they all now have to react to the McDaniel point of view.
Actually, it's truer than you actually know. I had a very energized conversation this morning with someone close to me, with the end of the conversation, me going, fuck you, and hanging up the phone. And I had to call back and say sorry because I felt bad. But, this individual is very...
Don't call back and feel bad. Call back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I apologized. You're an asshole.
I will tell you off air who this is, by the way.
Are you guys fight fans at all?
Fight fans?
Yeah.
Not so much.
No. Okay.
But we can learn.
I'm a huge fight fan. And the highest profile fighter in the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship right now, is an Irishman named Conor McGregor.
Oh, that dude, the big chest tattoo, right?
Yeah, the big on his chest. And he recently became the first fighter in UFC history to simultaneously hold two belts.
Wow.
Okay. And when he's standing in the middle of the octagon, two belts, one on either shoulder, and then he's got that big freaking crazy, I think it's a gorilla, that giant tattoo with a king and he's got a crown, and the crown comes up his neck, and he's standing there. So he's got these two freaking belts on his shoulders, and Joe Rogan, the commentator, is interviewing him, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing, he says something like, now that I've won these two belts, I just want to say I have trash talked and badmouthed almost every single fighter in the UFC, and I just want to say that I apologize to absolutely fucking nobody.
That is awesome. But
they now are selling T-shirts that say "apologize to nobody."
Now I'll tell you later who he was, but I think it's totally true. But the thing is, what I was getting to is that I am definitely ruffling feathers. My two teammates right here get to listen to me do it all the time, and they totally agree. But it's something that people don't do. They don't say the F-bomb. They don't do live stuff. They don't give away their stuff for free. Matt and I are changing an aspect of real estate by doing the exact same thing. Turning it on its head. But people have to be like you say in your book, and I know there's been a lot of Scots, but it was in your book, that, you've got to have, you have to have the balls essentially to step out from the herd. You've got to be willing to do something, the antithesis of what the norm is, and just go for it, balls to the walls. But
the other thing I'll tell you about the services business, and it's true whether it's real estate or any other services business, if you want to be the dominant, and particular the high-end player, the gal or guy that gets not just the revenue but the margins, differentiation matters, and the way you differentiate is on the type of clients. And I like to call this Studio 54 marketing. When Studio 54, the famous bar in New York, opened, it was just a piece of shit bar in a piece of shit building, okay? But I forget his name now. It'll come to me as soon as we get off the podcast. I think it's Steve. Anyway, one of the owners stood out the front of the bar and they put a velvet rope. And people would go by and there was no fucking sign. They would go by and they'd see a velvet rope. And so people would go, what's going on in there? And they'd come and ask him, what's going on there? And he'd say, oh, you can't come in here. It's a very hot new bar, Studio 54, but it's not open to everyone. You can't come in here.
It's not for you. It's not for you.
And then this line would start to form because when you tell people they can't have it, they lose their fuck minds, right? Yeah. And now there's this line, and this guy, Steve, would stand there and go, okay, you with the nice whatevers, you're allowed in. And you next to her
shoes
with the nice shoes, yeah. You with the great shoes, you come in. You're a loser. No. And he would literally pick and choose who could come into the bar, and people would lose their minds trying to figure out how the fuck to get into Studio 54. And all it was a shitty, it was like a giant warehouse, And so what's my point? Studio 54 marketing. You have to draw the velvet rope. You have to say, I'm sorry, you're not the type of client that I work with.
Yeah, that is so something true. That you touched on very, very. There was something you touched on real quick that I wanted to go deeper on real quick. So you said if you want to be particularly the high end player, the person that gets not just the revenue but the margin. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, so you guys know this way better than I do in the real estate business, but it's true in every business. There's top line revenue, and then there's profitable business. And those two things are not always the same. And so, you could have a situation where, you're the listing agent for a $10 million house, but the amount of hee-haw and bullshit associated with it and the discount that the client negotiates with you because they're not going to pay the regular, and you'll excuse me if I get it wrong, but is it still 6%?
Yeah, 5-6% is pretty standard.
5-6%, So there's this whole fuck negotiation that the dude with the giant house is going to have with you, and and then there's all the hee-haw, and that they're going to argue about who's smart, and so they may be a giant pain in the ass client who wants a giant fucking discount. And so my point is, yeah, there's revenue, but not all clients are the same value, right? And so what I know about the services businesses, whether you're a high-end management consultant or you're a one-person realtor, is you have to be clear about differentiating on the individual, right? In the tech business, we call them personas. So if you're building software, there's two things that you think about. One of them is the use case. How's this software going to get used? And two, who's going to use it, right? The use case and the persona. That's true in every business. What is the use case that is for the McDaniel team, right? What's the type of transaction that makes sense for you to be involved with? Because I'm sure there's some transactions that don't make sense. That's called being very grounded and clear about our use case. And then the type of client, that's the persona, right? And if we get really clear about those things, and then we use that clarity in our category design to position ourselves, just like Timmy did, right? Mm-hmm. And you keep in mind that sort of Studio 54 marketing concept, which is one of the things I love about Dr. Johnson here is in his podcast business. Yeah, he's my podcast doctor. He fixes my clogs.
That's Dr. Johnson. All right.
So when Dr. Johnson, right, I gave him a lead in his podcast business for an entrepreneur buddy of mine. And he sort of wanted to podcast, but not really. It was more like internet marketing with like a little bit of sort of podcasting. And when I sort of described it to Matt, he said, "No, we don't have a service for that." That's being very rigorous about use case and persona. In this case, it was the use case that was wrong. He understood. Well, why am I going to tell fucking the world what you understood? Matt, you tell him what you understood.
Yes. Well, I have grown to understand by trial and error that trying to serve I'm in love with the persona, right? So I understand that my market is coaches, consultants, speakers, guys like you, whether they're in real estate or not. I love that market. I love serving and helping those kinds of people reach more people, right? However, it's the use case that you mentioned. So like it was the right persona, wrong use case. So I knew that I didn't have a service for that use case because what he wanted was something outside the scope of what I had already built and provided. So I have a systematic service that produces a specific result, and we're really good at that. We're really good at staying in our lane. What he was looking for just wasn't in our lane, and I've done that enough where you try to just take in the revenue and say, well, we'll figure it out. And I've made enough mistakes to know that that's not a good idea. So I've gotten much more clear and better at staying in my lane.
Yeah, and that's very true. You do hold true to that, Matt. You really do. And Chris, Carla says she fucking loves you. Quote.
Well, Carla, I fucking love you too.
And the love doesn't have to stop there, because I wanted to point out, so Chris, you've mentioned Tim Rode a lot. So his episode just hit iTunes yesterday, his episode of Legends and Losers, where he goes into the story of how he became the #1 agent in his market. So guys, go check that out. That's on iTunes. Go to iTunes, search for Legends and Losers, pull up the podcast app on your phone, just like Greg has there. Seriously, it's a really phenomenal episode. I wrote up the show notes myself, so I just listened to it the other day after Chris, you sent it in, and it's an amazing conversation. Tim is a really awesome guy. I've had the chance to meet him. I met him in Tahoe, actually, but I didn't get a chance to spend any time with him. But that guy is magnetic. I mean, he is.
You guys should have him. You guys should have him on this show too.
I know, we need to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you want to hook us up with Timmy, that would be amazing. And guys, you guys got to go buy this book. You absolutely have to go buy this book. And I've just met Chris, but I've been getting to know him with not being a creeper, but just by reading the book. And you're gonna get to know so much stuff. And there's no way we haven't even scratched the surface on stuff. And Matt is way further ahead in it. And he was talking about lightning strikes and a lot of these other different things that we're putting into another business of ours that we're growing. And it's just. It's going to make you stand out. If you're a new agent or if you're a veteran agent trying to, distinguish yourself between all these millennials using all this technology mumbo jumbo, take a look at it, right? Take notes, really dive deep on this. Ask yourself, well, before we get off this, Chris, we've got to go through his first 3 questions. What are the questions that Dave always asks all the people? That will change the game for them.
Yeah. So this is a great topic. Thanks, Greg. So the 3 magic questions around category design is, what problem do I solve? And the languaging around the problem really matters. So we'll go back and talk about all these 3 things because there's a lot to unpack. What problem do I solve? 2, if I solve that problem, what category am I in? So if my solution solves that problem perfectly, what category am I in? And number 3, if I solve that problem, how valuable is my company or my real estate business? Because as you know, many realtors sell their practices at the end of their career. And there's a big swing in the values of those practices, right? And I know some of the numbers. It's not up to me to share them, but Tim's practice was worth a shit ton when he retired, right? And most realtors in Manteca didn't retire; they got fucked.
Yes, they did. They got run over by the Mack truck that is Tim Rode.
Well, and I'll tell you, you only have to get smashed by a category king once in your career to say. To quote the Big Lebowski, this aggression will not stand, man.
I can't believe you just quoted Big Lebowski. One of my favorite quotes in that entire movie is he's holding a bowling ball, and above him he's obviously you're not a golfer. Yeah, that's just boom.
The other one I love is when he's holding the White Russian in his hand, and they throw him into the back of the limo. And rather than saying, hey, you just kidnapped my ass, or where the fuck are we going, or what, as he goes in the back of the limo, what does he say, Greg?
He's like, hey, man. Or, God, what is he? Oh, I'm not the wrong Lebowski or something? Or
No, he says, hey, man. And he's holding his White Russian. Careful, there's a beverage here.
I haven't seen that movie.
You got to have priorities in life.
I have got to go back and watch that movie ASAP. That is such a funny movie.
Study the Big Lebowski. You don't need to go to college. Study the Big Lebowski.
He does come out a winner. So, I mean, you can't hate on the guy. Oh, my Lord. Matt, we are nearly at bingo on this. I just want to let you know.
Caitlin would like us to keep going, but sadly we cannot. She says, don't end the live feed. Talk forever. Chris is awesome. I know there's a lot of people on Facebook right now that feel the same way. So, guys, if you want more of Chris,
Caitlin.
very, very easy. Go over to iTunes, subscribe to Legends and Losers. There's already quite a few episodes up there. I mean, got interviews with Shaku Atre and Dushku. I mean, there's some incredible episodes up there, and more to come. So, Chris, one of the episodes that comes out later this week is Mike Maples. Tell people who he is.
Yeah, so stoked that we could have him on Legends and Losers, Matt. I've known Mike for about 15 years or so, and he, according to Forbes, is one of the top 20 venture capital investors on planet Earth. And he's invested in Twitter and a whole ton of giant companies. And on the show, Mike shares many things, but one of the things he shares is he believes the fundamental context of our economy has done a 180, and that everything that we think about, the way we think about the economy and how it works, is wrong today. And I can summarize the concept very quickly for you.
Yeah.
If you know anything about economics at all, and I'm not an expert, but the premise of economics is pretty simple. It's based on a scarcity paradigm. There are only so many bananas in the world, and so I compete for bananas, right? And so that's what there's scarcity and supply and demand. Adam Smith. That's how the economy works, right? And that's how the stock market works. I have a stock. I have it for $20. You want to buy it? If you agree to buy it for $21, I agree to sell it to you, right? It's called a marketplace. It's called commerce. But it's all predicated on a scarcity model. There's only so much of a certain kind of commodity or resource, and based on the demand, the price goes up, and based on the supply, et cetera. Everybody understands that basic. So here's what Mike says. That's not true anymore.
Really? How so?
What he believes is going on is that it is no longer about capturing market share from a scarcity point of view, that technology is actually creating abundance. And
really?
So, yeah, I mean, think about content. Think about what we're doing right now, right? You could argue back in the old days when there were 3 TV networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC, you could argue, if you're an advertiser, there's a scarcity of advertising on television to get to your audience. And therefore, 3 companies have massive pricing power, because if you want to get to a large-scale audience, you got to go through their gate. And that's in a scarcity model. Well, what's happened with technology? I'll tell you what's happened. The #1 show on NBC in January was the Celebrity Retard Apprentice.
Oh my God.
The Celebutard Apprentice with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. And according to Nielsen, approximately 5 million people watched that show. About 3 or 4 weeks ago on Joe Rogan's podcast, he had Gary Vaynerchuk on. And if you go listen to that episode, it gets kind of funny because, Gary's a big deal on social media, as you probably know, and in podcasting. And they do a little bit of a dick measuring contest, to sort of see who's the bigger sort of social media hoo-ha. And on the show, Rogan says he has 95 million downloads a month.
Oh my God.
Now, let's unpack this, Greg. He does approximately 3 shows a week. And a lot of his shows, and I'm a fan, so don't, to quote Archie Bunker, misconstrue what I'm about to say. Most of his shows are him sitting around smoking pot with his comedy friends or his fight friends. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you have a comedian fight guy smoking pot with his buddies, and he's on average 7 to 8 million downloads an episode, and fucking NBC with Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger gets 5 million.
Wow.
The world has changed.
Yes.
It has, but
Getting back to the point about Mike Maples, though, the idea. Things have changed. So content is an example of the fact that we've switched to like this massive abundance, right? And
Correct.
there's all these areas in the economy where we're seeing those same effects, the same effects we're seeing in content, we're seeing in all these other areas. So finish out the thought in terms of what that means in terms of the implications.
Yes, very good. So, and I'm paraphrasing Mike, and Mike is about 1 billion times smarter than me. I don't even know why he hangs out with me, but anyways, I have pictures of him that are unflattering.
Just throwing it out there. You fuck with me, and I'm going to show these. Just try.
I got a little Putin action on him. And so here's what he says. The legendary entrepreneurs going forward, he calls them prime movers. Prime movers do is they create new categories, and of course the services, products, and companies to execute on that category design. And those categories are predicated on exploding abundance.
Interesting.
And so the job going forward is, how do I be a prime mover who can design a category that creates a whole new level of abundance in whatever domain, whatever space, whatever category you're talking about. And then as that abundance explodes, I position myself as the category king, and I take a massively unfair share, 76% according to the data science, of the economics in that exploding new category. That's what Uber is. That's what Facebook is. And it turns out, if you go back in time, that's what legendary entrepreneurship was always about. Yeah. And so, but he believes with technology and the reach of technology, your ability to create abundance in new categories is materially different. And I think he's absolutely right. And so it's a complete mindfuck, because if everything we know is, how do I compete for share in a scarce space? That's one thing. We're a bunch of animals fighting over one dead carcass, right? Yep. Versus, how do I be, in Mike's words, a prime mover entrepreneur who designs a category that explodes and creates massive new abundance, value, and ultimately wealth. And as that new abundance explodes, I then position myself as the category king to take the vast majority of the economics. But that's a completely different way of thinking about the creation of value and how the works. And he lays it out in our discussion that's coming out a little bit later this week. But it's a mind-blowing way to begin to think about how you want to position yourself. And are you somebody that's creating new abundance, or are you somebody that's fighting over the dead carcass with all the other, vultures?
I think that's, coming from abundance mindset is automatically putting powerful, positive energy out there and not being afraid from the lack mindset. And if you guys are sitting there scratching your head going, how the fuck do I come up with an idea? Well, first, go listen to the podcast. Second off, you go to jsammet.com. He's another. Chris, have you met Jay? Dude, I think you guys would click. Dude, you two would click like, peas and carrots. But go to
I would prefer to say Jack and Coke, but however you want to think about it, Greg.
Let's go Jack and Coke. It's one of my favorites, so touche. So you guys are getting together at Jack and Coke, or vodka and Red Bull, whatever you want to choose. But go to jsammet.com, download his PDF, guys. It's a 40-page PDF. He's going to take you through questions, and he took Matt and I through it. And if you really want to start figuring out how you can create a category, and then go read, simultaneously be reading Chris's book here, Play Bigger, you're going to think of 3 things every single day that piss you off, that bother you, that irritate you, or something else. And then think of solutions for them. Do that for 30 days. Within those 30 days, you are going to find $100 million or billion-dollar ideas that you could be the category king of. And that can get you going.
I just want to reinforce what you said. We profile an entrepreneur named Manoj, and I forget his last name, in the book Play Bigger. He's the category designer of the energy shot, 5-hour energy, right, is the product. And this is how simple his insight was. Just because I'm tired doesn't mean I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
And to your point, Greg, that little, you might even call it wrinkle, right? And there were lots of solutions for I'm tired. Coffee and Red Bull and Monster and all kinds of stuff, right? He reimagined the problem, but he said, I don't want to drink a giant fucking can of yuck.
So
right?
true.
I just want to drink a tiny can of yuck.
Small shit.
That's right. As little as possible.
But to your point, that one was sitting underneath how many, who knows, thousands of people's nose, right? It was right there. And to just put a fine point on it, they're the only company in history to have 5 products, 5 SKUs at the Walmart checkout.
Really?
The Walmart checkout, the Walmart cash register is arguably the most important piece of real estate in the physical retail world. And they got 5 fucking products sitting right there, right? What they did in creating the energy shot category and the 5-hour energy category King brand is unbelievable. And it all starts with that simple insight. Just because I'm tired doesn't mean I'm thirsty. And so I can't underscore what you said enough.
Yeah, guys, this is, I mean, Chris, if you'll be, would love to get you back on here, man, because I think that a lot of the people that are listening to this, their heads just, I heard a little all over the country.
They went from, what would we call it, plums to prunes. Like
just they're having a rough day because they can't understand it. They don't grasp it. Like I didn't grasp it until I got into your book deeper and deeper. And then when you get it, it's epic. It's truly, it's a life-changing mind. It's a life-changing for yourself and for your future selves, your kids, your grandkids, and everything else. If you're willing to sit your fat ass the fuck down and write some shit on a piece of paper using a prehistoric thing called a pen. I mean, Chris, you and I remember pens. Matt doesn't really remember pens. He's a millennial. It's okay.
Whatever. You're 3 years older than me. Shut up. All right, guys. We got to wrap this one up, Chris. We really appreciate you being here and sharing everything. And guys, seriously, go out and get the book. Subscribe to the podcast, Legends and Losers. Go over and get that on iTunes. And yeah, Chris, we got to get you back on and go deeper into some of the other stuff like lightning strikes and the point of view. We didn't even really dive into what a point of view is, how to formulate one. And that's we can dive so deep on some of the stuff that you talk about. But guys, in the meantime, we've got our next live training class coming up next month. Go to Rockstar Prospecting, check that out. We don't have time to tell you anything more about it. That's about it. You should just go check it out right now. You don't need to know anything more than that, other than it's all about how to grow your real estate business. Go check it out at rockstarprospecting.com. Make sure to follow Greg on Facebook.
Yes.
You can also find me. I am Pursuing Results. We are very easy to find on Facebook and Instagram. Find us there, guys. And until next time, we've got on Friday coming up, it's me and Greg. We're talking about what to do in your first 90 days in the business, guys. So if you or someone you know is just new or getting into the business, we have a lot of people that listen to the show or find us on YouTube that they actually find us before they even get their license, and they hit the ground having no clue. They are a newborn infant expected to run. That is the sad truth of real estate. So if that's you or someone that you know and care about, get them to watch the show on Friday. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. Until then, guys, thank you so much for watching.
We love you guys.
Peace
out, ninjas. Oh, shit.